I think that one thing that gives me confidence in our political system, which has very much been questioned rightly at this present time, is that at no stage, even those cuts went through, but in regard to the issue about whether that further budget should be cut further, at no stage in my experience, and I stand to be corrected, did I hear or see any Irish political party actually raising that as a political point of contention. Independents, parties here, Fianna Fáil, all, I think, agreed or had common understanding that it's important we maintain our overseas budget. I think they're reflective, or they're representative in that way, of the Irish people. I think the Irish representatives reflect that common decency that we have in this country, that common understanding that ultimately my dignity, even in these difficult times when our resources and our income is being cut, our dignity, my dignity, is diminished by human misery wherever it may exist. It's in our psyche, I think, and our political system, I think, understands that. And it's important that we maintain that. We also need to be effective. To maintain that confidence, we need to be effective in the money we are spending and what we are doing. My personal sense is, and it's a personal reflection, is that we need to be good at three things in that work. I think the simple, clear understanding is that being good or helping develop education, particularly young girls, is the most effective way of us helping people get themselves out of poverty. Strong, long history record in that regard. My personal experience also tells me that it's in the area of energy that there's going to be a huge area of development of work in terms of development aid. That those 2 billion people caught in energy poverty globally, not being on an electricity grid, having to use the wrong materials for their simple cooking and heating systems, is actually one of the most crucial ways of helping those people out of poverty. And it's related to the issue that was highlighted this week of actually climate change actually now being probably the biggest threat in terms of already pushing up food prices to people living on the margins of nature, who are most vulnerable as nature changes. Very little room to manoeuvre. Partly in terms of governance, I think again we look at what the good work we've done, the likes of our judges going off to countries and actually trying to help share our experience. We have some experience and some strength, even in our flawed political system, in governance. And that's an area where we need to be continually strong and share what we do have. It's also a critical area because we are living in an increasingly globalised world. I don't see it being reversed. I think the hunger that will exist across this world for some of the consumer benefits that we have had in the Western developed country is not going to be diminished. It shouldn't be. And increasingly there will be a globalised traded system that will actually provide those needs that people have. Just to be right as well, in terms of that globalised trading system also has certain constraints in terms of how we operate. And I don't disagree with Roisin or anyone else in terms of we need to go out and within that globalised world where we are dependent for our own income and our own employment, we need to look to see that we change the rules to help us. Global capital trade flows and all the whole range of other elements of it is not working well. It does need to be changed. But we need to act in cooperation, I believe, to actually get those changed to help us and to maintain the employment and the incomes that we do have here. That's also important. It's also hugely critical. I think this is a very good combination here in terms of with Trocaire and St. Vincent de Paul to say to be able to do that, to be able to operate effectively globally, we need to maintain our social fabric here as our income contracts and then hopefully recovers. And in that regard, it's been incredibly difficult. No one would stand up and be proud of any of the cuts that have been made in the likes of social welfare systems. But one thing the Green Party is saying, we set it out earlier this week, in our plan for the next 3 years in terms of how we manage our budget, is we agree that there should not be rate cuts, further rate cuts in social welfare. We think it is possible to do it. A further contraction somewhat, some by 3% in the social welfare budget may be needed. But we believe that that can be achieved without cutting the actual the rates. And that's something I think we should all strive to achieve in the political system, as I said, so that we enter into this very difficult phase holding our social fabric, which will make it easier for us to do what we need to do. Finally, and I'm conscious of time, we also need to get it. It isn't just about the rates, or about the rates important. It isn't just about it's how we use the resource effectively, which is critical. in 3 areas in my mind. In education, we also in the Green Party try to maintain that, recognise that it is actually a acute issue of social justice for us to continue to invest in our education system. And it's not just about the inputs. We have to really look and measure our outputs now, because our budgets are going to be limited. So we have to look to see, change the way we work to make sure we get more, that we improve our literacy. Because there's such a tie between illiteracy and poverty and prison. We need to get our education system working effectively, getting better outputs from the money that we put in. We also, in energy, are ready actually to develop a new fuel poverty strategy that uses the money we already are spending much more effectively to get a better output. To actually look to see, can we use that budget in a cleverer way so that we start building, retrofit people's buildings, start avoiding them having to even turn on the heating and therefore cut their budget. And lastly, governance. We also need to change our political system to make it more responsive, to think long-term, to think bigger, to challenge the really big issues. And I'm fully committed, and the Green Party committed, to the approach advocated by Trocaire and Vincent de Paul here today, and can agree to the agenda set out, that actually part of our response, part of our effectiveness in this new international diplomacy that we'll have to do to improve our position, requires us, being seen as we are, as a country, even in the hardest times, thinks internationally, is willing to support the poorest, and a country that also in this time is willing to protect, is demanding that we protect our social fabric so that we actually make our way back proudly in the world.